Minute-Jun's face flushed with anger. "Watch your mouth." "I'm simply stating what happened," Alia replied, her voice steady despite the pulse hammering in her throat. Jiho Kang had been watching the exchange with detached interest. Now his eyes narrowed slightly. He set down his glass with deliberate care. "You forget your place," he said quietly. The words were soft, almost gentle, but they carried the weight of absolute authority. Alia met his gaze. "With respect, sir, I know exactly what my place is, and it's not to accept blame for something I didn't do." For a moment, something flickered in Jiho's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition of something he hadn't expected to find in a woman serving him dinner. Then his hand moved. The slap echoed through the restaurant like a gunshot. Alia's head snapped to the side. Pain bloomed across her cheek, hot and immediate. She tasted blood where her teeth had cut the inside of her mouth. The restaurant held its breath. Jiho Kang had just struck a waitress in front of 24 witnesses. Alia stumbled back, her hand flying to her face. Around them, staff members froze in horror. This was how people lost their jobs. How they lost their reputations. How they disappeared from Seoul entirely. But Alia wasn't thinking about her job. She lifted her head slowly, her dark eyes locking onto his. And instead of fear, she smiled. "You shouldn't have done that," she said quietly. Jiho's jaw tightened. "Excuse me." "Hello, fam, welcome back to the channel. Subscribe now and join us on this unforgettable journey. Don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. And thank you so much for your immense support." Chapter 1. The Slap. The restaurant fell silent. Every fork hovered midair. Every breath stopped. Every eye turned toward the private dining room where Korea's most dangerous men conducted business over wine and blood. Alia Carter stood beside the table, her serving tray trembling slightly in her hands. She'd been working at Biko restaurant for 3 months. 3 months of perfect service. 3 months of keeping her head down, her smile professional, her movements invisible. Until tonight. Jiho Kang sat at the head of the table like a king presiding over his court. His suit was flawless. His posture relaxed. His dark eyes sharp enough to cut glass. Everything about him screamed power and control. The man beside him, his associate Minute-Jun, reached for his wine glass. His hand moved too quickly, too carelessly. The gesture knocked Alia's tray, sending a splash of red wine across the white tablecloth. Minute-Jun's hand shot out, knocking Alia's tray. Red wine exploded across the white tablecloth like blood on snow. The entire restaurant froze. Korea's most dangerous men stopped mid-conversation. Chopsticks hovered in midair. Even the chandeliers seemed to dim, as if the room itself understood that something terrible was about to happen. "Clumsy bitch," Minute-Jun spat, his voice dripping with contempt. Alia felt every eye turn toward her. Felt the weight of judgment pressing down like stones on her chest. Felt her carefully constructed survival instinct screaming at her to apologize, to bow, to disappear. Instead, she heard herself say, "You grabbed my arm, sir. I apologize for your clumsiness." The silence that followed was suffocating. No one spoke to Minute-Jun like that. No one corrected the men who sat at Jiho Kang's table. Certainly not a foreign waitress who'd only been in Seoul for 3 months. Minute-Jun's face turned the color of the spilled wine. "What did you just say to me?" "I said, enough." The single word cut through the tension like a blade through silk. Jiho Kang set down his wine glass with deliberate precision. The sound of crystal touching would echoed in the silence. He turned his head slowly, and Alia found herself staring into the darkest eyes she'd ever seen. Eyes that had watched men die. Eyes that had ordered deaths. Eyes that saw everything and felt nothing. "You forget your place," he said softly. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. The way a judge might sound before pronouncing a death sentence. Alia's survival instinct finally kicked in. Screamed at her to apologize. To grovel. To do whatever it took to escape this moment alive. But something else rose up inside her. Something that had been building through 3 months of being invisible, being disrespected, being treated like she was less than human because of the color of her skin. She lifted her chin and met his gaze directly. "With respect, Mr. Kang, I know exactly what my place is. And it's not accepting blame for something I didn't do." For one heartbeat, something flickered in those dead eyes. Surprise. recognition, maybe even respect. Then his hand moved. Fast, brutal, final, crack. The sound of his palm connecting with her face echoed through Biko restaurant like a gunshot. Alia's world exploded into white-hot pain. Her head whipped to the side. Blood filled her mouth where her teeth sliced into her cheek. The floor tilted beneath her feet. Around them, the entire restaurant held its breath. Ji-ho Kang, heir to Korea's most powerful crime family, had just struck a woman in public. Alia stumbled backward, her hand flying to her burning cheek. Through the ringing in her ears, she heard gasps, whispers, the scrape of chairs as staff members scrambled to become invisible. This was it. This was how her sole dream ended. Not with success or failure, but with violence and humiliation and the certain knowledge that by morning, every restaurant in this city would know her face and refuse her entry. But then her vision cleared. And she saw it. The thing no one else noticed. When Ji-ho had raised his hand to strike her, his expensive suit jacket had pulled back for just a fraction of a second. And in that fraction of a second, Alia's eyes, trained by years of watching, observing, surviving, caught something beneath the crisp white shirt. A bandage. Fresh. Bulky. Placed exactly where someone would dress a gunshot wound. And bleeding through. Her mind raced through fragments of conversation she'd overheard. Rumors whispered in the kitchen. News reports about a shooting in Manila 3 months ago. A Korean businessman injured in a deal gone wrong. No names given. No suspects identified. No connection to Ji-ho Kang. Until now. Alia lifted her head slowly, her dark eyes locking onto his. And instead of fear, she smiled. Blood on her teeth. Fire in her eyes. Knowledge in her expression. You shouldn't have done that, she said quietly. Ji-ho's jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed. Something dangerous flickered across his face. Excuse me. Alia's hand moved to the fork lying beside the spilled wine. She picked it up slowly, deliberately, her fingers wrapping around the silver handle. The room watched. No one breathed. No one moved. Everyone waited to see what the crazy foreign woman would do next. When you raised your hand, Alia said, her voice low and steady, pitched so only those at the table could hear, your jacket pulled back. Ji-ho went absolutely still. And I saw the bandaging, she continued, her eyes never leaving his. Fresh. Professional. Placed exactly where a bullet wound would be. Minute-jun's hand moved toward his weapon. But Ji-ho raised one finger. Just one. And every person at that table froze. Alia took a careful step forward, the fork still in her hand, its prongs catching the light. The rumors say someone important was shot in Manila 3 months ago, she whispered. They say it was a betrayal. They say the man survived, but barely. They say he came home in secret and told no one. She set the fork down on the table, pointing it directly at him like an accusation. They say, she finished, her voice dropping to barely a breath, that whoever pulled that trigger was someone close. Someone trusted. Someone who's still walking free. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. And judging by the way you're bleeding through your shirt right now, Mr. Kang, I'd say those rumors are true. The air itself seemed to stop moving. Ji-ho Kang stared at her like she was a ghost. Like she was a threat. Like she was the most dangerous thing he'd encountered in years. Because she was right. About all of it. And she shouldn't be. No one outside his inner circle knew about Manila. No one knew about the bullet. No one knew about the betrayal that nearly killed him. And certainly not a waitress he'd just slapped. Who sent you? He demanded, his voice deadly quiet. Nobody sent me, Alia replied. I just pay attention. She gestured at his side, where a dark stain was slowly spreading across his white shirt. And right now, I'm paying attention to the fact that you're bleeding. That wound reopened when you hit me. You're losing blood in front of everyone. And if the people who shot you in Manila knew what I know right now. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. You'd be dead before dessert. Ji-ho looked down. She was right. A crimson stain bloomed beneath his jacket, small but growing. When he looked back up at her, something had changed in his eyes. The dead coldness was gone, replaced by sharp calculation. And something else. Something that looked almost like fear. Not of her. Of what she knew. He stood slowly, his movements controlled despite the pain that must be screaming through his side. "Come with me," he said. "I'm working," Aliyah replied. His smile was cold enough to freeze blood. "Not anymore." He turned to the restaurant manager, who stood frozen near the kitchen like a deer watching headlights approach. "This woman no longer works here. I'm taking her with me." "Sir, if there's been a problem with service." "There's no problem," Jiho interrupted, his eyes never leaving Aliyah's face. "She's just been promoted." He stepped closer to her, close enough that she could smell expensive cologne mixed with something copper and dark. "Blood. You have two choices, Miss Carter," he said softly. "You come with me right now, willingly, and we discuss what you know in private. Or you walk out that door, and by tomorrow morning, you'll discover that every opportunity in this city has mysteriously vanished." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Every door locked. Every job filled. Every apartment unavailable. You'll find yourself very alone in Seoul, with knowledge that very dangerous people would kill to possess." He leaned closer, and Aliyah could see the pain flickering beneath his control. "I protect my secrets, Miss Carter. And you just became one of them." Aliyah's heart hammered against her ribs. She had two choices. Walk out that door and hope she could disappear before whoever shot Jiho Kang discovered she knew their secret. Or walk into the darkness with Korea's most dangerous man and pray she survived what came next. She looked at the fork on the table. Then at the blood spreading across his shirt. Then into his eyes. "If I come with you," she said quietly, "I want your word that I'm not going to end up in the Han River." "You have it." "How do I know you'll keep it?" Jiho's smile turned sharp. "Because, Miss Carter, you're the only person in Seoul who knows I'm wounded, which makes you either my greatest liability." He extended his hand toward her. "Or my most valuable asset. And I don't throw away valuable things." Aliyah stared at his outstretched hand. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was the moment her life in Seoul either ended or transformed into something she couldn't begin to imagine. She took his hand. His fingers closed around hers like a trap snapping shut. "Smart choice," he murmured. As he led her toward the exit, Aliyah caught sight of her reflection in the restaurant's mirrors. Blood at the corner of her mouth. A red mark blooming across her cheek. And in her eyes, something new. Not fear. Not submission. But the terrifying realization that she just exposed Korea's most dangerous man's deepest secret. And now she belonged to him, whether she wanted to or not. Aliyah's hand moved to the fork she'd been holding. She dropped it when he struck her, but now she picked it up from the white tablecloth. Its silver prongs glinted under the chandelier light. "When you raised your arm," she said, her voice low enough that only those at the table could hear, "your jacket pulled back." Jiho went very still. "And I saw the scar," Aliyah continued. "Just below your ribs. Surgical. Recent." The air itself seemed to freeze. "You had a bullet removed," she said, watching his face carefully. "But not in Korea. Somewhere else. Somewhere you weren't supposed to be." Minute-jun reached for his weapon, but Jiho raised a finger. The gesture was minimal, but absolute. Aliyah took a careful step closer, the fork still in her hand. "The rumors say you were in the Philippines 3 months ago," she whispered. "Which means someone close to you pulled that trigger. Someone you trusted." She set the fork down on the table, its prongs pointing directly at him. "Which means," she finished, "you were betrayed." Jiho stared at her. His face was a mask of calm, but his eyes burned with something dangerous. Something lethal. No one was supposed to know about Manila. Not his men. Not his enemies. Not his own family. And certainly not a waitress. "Who sent you?" he demanded, his voice deadly quiet. "No one," Aliyah replied. "I'm observant. And you're bleeding through your shirt." She gestured at his side, where the faintest hint of red had seeped through the white fabric beneath his jacket. "The wound reopened when you hit me," she said. "You're losing blood right now. And if your rivals knew what I know, you'd already be dead." Jiho looked down. She was right. A small stain had appeared, barely visible, but there. He stood slowly, his movements controlled despite the pain that must be radiating from his side. "Come with me," he said. "I'm working," Aliyah replied. "Not anymore." He turned to the restaurant manager, who stood frozen by the kitchen entrance. This woman is dismissed. I'm taking her with me. Sir, if there's a problem. There's no problem, Jiho interrupted. She's coming to work for me instead. Alia's eyes widened. Excuse me. You have two choices, Jiho said, his voice soft but absolute. You come with me now, or you leave this restaurant and discover that every door in Seoul has closed to you by morning. He leaned closer, and Alia could smell blood and expensive cologne. I protect my secrets, he whispered. And you, Miss Carter, just became one of them. Chapter 2. Forced Proximity. The car was silent except for the hum of the engine and the rain beginning to fall outside. Alia sat in the back seat, as far from Jiho as possible. One of his men, a stern-faced driver named Tai, navigated the wet streets of Seoul with practiced ease. Another bodyguard sat in the passenger seat, his hand never far from his weapon. Jiho pressed a handkerchief to his side, his jaw tight with pain. You're bleeding more, Alia said quietly. I'm aware. You need medical attention. I'll handle it. You'll pass out if you keep losing blood at that rate, she said. And then what? Your men carry you into a hospital and answer questions about how the head of the Kang family got shot in Manila. Jiho's eyes cut to her. You talk too much. You hit too hard, she countered. For a moment, something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by cold calculation. How did you know about Manila? He asked. I didn't, Alia admitted. Not for certain. But I read people. It's how I've survived in this city for 2 years. Survived what? Being foreign. Being alone. Being a woman in a country that doesn't always welcome any of those things. Jiho studied her with those sharp, dangerous eyes. You're American. Ethiopian American, she corrected. I came to Seoul for work. Better money than I could make back home. A chance to see the world. And instead you ended up serving wine to criminals. I ended up serving wine to businessmen, Alia said carefully. What they do outside the restaurant isn't my concern. Except now it is, Jiho replied. Because you saw something you shouldn't have. Because you know something that could destroy me. Then you should have thought of that before you hit me, Alia said, her voice harder now. The car pulled up to a massive gate. Beyond it, Alia could see an estate that looked like something from a Korean drama. All stone and glass and power. Welcome to your new home, Jiho said as the gate swung open. I never agreed to stay here. You didn't have to. He turned to face her fully. Miss Carter, you have information that could get me killed. Do you really think I'm going to let you walk free? So I'm a prisoner. You're protected, he corrected. From my enemies. From yourself. From the consequences of knowing too much. The car stopped in front of the main entrance. Tai opened Alia's door, his expression unreadable. She had two choices. Get out of the car and walk into this gilded cage. Or refuse, and discover what happened to people who defied Jiho Kang. Alia thought of her apartment in Hongdae. Her small life. Her carefully constructed independence. Then she thought of the scar she'd seen. The secret she'd uncovered. The danger that was now wrapped around her like a second skin. She stepped out of the car. Jiho watched her with those calculating eyes. Smart choice. Don't mistake survival for acceptance, Alia replied. They walked through massive doors into a foyer that looked like art and money had a violent collision. Marble floors. Crystal chandeliers. Staff members who appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. A woman in her 50s approached, her posture perfect, her expression concerned. Mr. Kang, you're injured. It's nothing, Mrs. Han, Jiho said. You're bleeding through your shirt. That's not nothing. Mrs. Han's eyes moved to Alia. And who is this? A guest, Jiho said. She'll be staying in the East Wing. Make sure she has everything she needs. Of course, sir. And Mrs. Han. Jiho's voice dropped. She doesn't leave the property. Not without my permission. Not for any reason. Mrs. Han's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded. Understood. Jiho turned to Alia. Your room is across from mine. If you try to leave, you'll be stopped. If you try to contact anyone outside this estate, you'll be stopped. If you do anything that threatens the security of this household, there will be consequences. Am I supposed to thank you for this hospitality? Aliyah asked. You're supposed to stay alive, Jiho replied. Everything else is negotiable. He walked away, still pressing the handkerchief to his side, leaving a faint trail of blood on the pristine marble. Mrs. Han approached Aliyah with a gentle smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. This way, Miss Carter. I'll show you to your room. As they walked through corridors that felt more like a museum than a home, Aliyah's mind raced. She'd just been kidnapped by a Mafia boss. She knew his most dangerous secret, and she was trapped in his house with no way out. But as they passed a mirror in the hallway, Aliyah caught sight of her reflection. Her cheek was still red from where he'd struck her. Her eyes were bright with anger and fear and something else. Determination. Jiho Kang thought he could control her. Thought he could cage her to protect his secret. He was about to learn that Aliyah Carter didn't stay caged. Not for anyone. Chapter 3. The Secret Bleeds. Aliyah's room was beautiful. Too beautiful. The kind of beautiful that felt like a trap disguised as luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens lit by subtle pathway lights. A bed that could sleep 4 people. A bathroom with heated floors and a shower that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. But the door locked from the outside. Aliyah had tested it 3 times. She stood at the window, watching rain streak down the glass, when she heard the sound. A thud. Then silence. Then another thud, heavier this time. It came from across the hall. Jiho's room. Aliyah pressed her ear to the door. Nothing. Then a crash, like something heavy hitting the floor. She tried the door handle. Still locked. Hello? She called out. Mrs. Han? Anyone? No response. Another crash. Aliyah made a decision. She grabbed a hairpin from the dresser and went to work on the door lock. It was a skill she'd learned from a misspent youth, back when survival meant knowing how to get into places she wasn't supposed to be. The lock clicked. She eased the door open and stepped into the hallway. Jiho's door was slightly ajar. Light spilled from inside, along with the sound of harsh breathing. Aliyah pushed it open. Jiho was on the floor beside his bed, one hand pressed to his side, the other bracing against the mattress as he tried to stand. Blood soaked through his shirt, darker now, spreading faster. Get out, he managed. You're dying, Aliyah said flatly. I said get out. She ignored him and crossed to where he lay. Up close, she could see how pale he'd become. How the wound had reopened completely, the surgical stitches torn. Where's your medical kit? She demanded. I don't need. Where is it? Something in her voice made him gesture toward the bathroom. Aliyah found it immediately. A professional-grade trauma kit, the kind that spoke of gunshot wounds and knife fights and injuries that couldn't be explained to hospitals. She brought it back and knelt beside him. I need to see the wound, she said. No. You're going to bleed out in the next 20 minutes if I don't stop this. Your pride or your life. Choose. Jiho's eyes met hers. Even half-conscious from blood loss, they were still sharp. Still assessing. Still dangerous. Why are you helping me? He asked. Because I need you alive, Aliyah replied honestly. Dead, you're no use to me. Alive, maybe I can negotiate my way out of here. Practical. Realistic. He let her lift his shirt. The wound was worse than she'd thought. The scar was recent, maybe 6 weeks old, and the stitches had torn completely. Blood pulsed from the opening with each heartbeat. This needs a hospital, Aliyah said. No hospitals. Then you need to tell me what happened in Manila, she said, opening the medical kit. Because if I'm going to keep your secret, I need to know what I'm protecting. Jiho was quiet for a long moment. Pain and blood loss were stripping away his careful control. Aliyah could see it in the way his hands trembled. The way his breathing had become shallow. My cousin, he finally said. Lee Jun. He was supposed to watch my back during a meeting with the Filipino syndicate. Aliyah threaded a needle from the kit, her hands steady. Instead, she prompted. Instead he took payment from our rivals. Set me up. I walked into that meeting and walked into an ambush. She cleaned the wound with antiseptic. Jiho hissed in pain but didn't pull away. Who knows? Aliyah asked. That I was shot? My personal doctor. My head of security. No one else. And your cousin? Dead, Jiho said simply. I made sure of that personally. Alia began stitching, her movements careful and precise. She'd learned field medicine from a boyfriend who'd been a paramedic. Never thought she'd use it to save a mafia boss. Why keep it secret? She asked. If you were betrayed, why not expose it? Use it to consolidate power. Because betrayal shows weakness, Jiho replied, his voice strained. In my world, weakness is death. If my associates knew someone close to me had turned, they'd question my judgment, my control, my ability to lead. He grabbed her wrist as she made another stitch. And if my enemies knew, he continued, they'd strike while I'm still recovering, while I'm still vulnerable. Their faces were inches apart. Alia could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, could smell blood and rain and something deeper, something that made her pulse quicken despite everything. So you hit me to maintain the illusion of control, she said quietly, to show dominance in front of your men. Yes. And now you're bleeding out in front of me because that illusion reopened your wound. Also yes. Alia resumed stitching. You're an idiot. I'm a survivor, Jiho corrected. There's a difference. She tied off the final stitch and bandaged the wound with professional efficiency. There, she said. That should hold if you don't do anything stupid. Which, given tonight's evidence, seems unlikely. Jiho looked down at the neat bandaging, then up at her. You're good at this, he observed. I'm good at lots of things, Alia replied, most of which don't involve being kidnapped. You're not kidnapped. I'm not free. No, he agreed. You're not. He struggled to his feet, using the bed for support. Alia stood as well, keeping a careful distance. Thank you, Jiho said. The words seemed to cost him something. You're welcome. Now let me leave. No. You just said thank you. And now I'm saying no. He moved to a chair by the window, lowering himself carefully. You know too much, Miss Carter. You've seen me weak. You know about Manila. You know I was betrayed. I also just saved your life, Alia pointed out. Which means I owe you. But it doesn't mean I trust you. He gestured to the medical kit. You'll stay in this house. You'll help me recover. And in exchange, I won't destroy your life. That's not an exchange. That's extortion. Call it what you want, Jiho said. The result is the same. Alia felt fury rising in her chest. I'm not your prisoner. No, he agreed. You're my secret. And secrets stay locked away where they can't cause damage. She wanted to argue, wanted to fight, wanted to grab that fork from earlier and show him exactly what she thought of being called a secret. But Jiho was right about one thing. She knew too much. And knowledge, in his world, was the most dangerous weapon of all. Fine, she said. I'll stay. For now. But this doesn't make us even. I know. And it doesn't make me yours. Something flickered in his eyes. Something dark and possessive and far too intense. We'll see, he said softly. Alia turned and walked back to her room, very aware of his eyes on her the entire way. As she closed her door, she heard him call out, Miss Carter. She paused. What? You picked that lock in under 30 seconds. Impressive. Alia didn't respond. She simply locked her door from the inside and leaned against it, her heart racing. She'd just stitched up a mafia boss. She'd seen him weak and bleeding and almost human. And worst of all, she'd felt something when their faces were close. Something that had nothing to do with fear or survival, and everything to do with the way he'd looked at her. Like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. Like she was dangerous in ways he hadn't anticipated. Like she was his. Outside her door, Jiho sat in the darkness, one hand pressed to his fresh bandages. He'd been in control his entire adult life. Had built an empire through calculation and ruthlessness and never showing weakness. But Alia Carter had seen past all of that in a single glance. Had saved him when she should have let him bleed. Had locked eyes with him and refused to look away. She was a problem. A complication. A secret he couldn't afford but couldn't let go. And as he sat there in the dark, Jiho realized something that should have terrified him. He didn't want to let her go. Not now. Possibly not ever. Which made her the most dangerous person in his life. And the most fascinating. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell. Comment below and tell us, do you think Aaliyah should trust Jiho? Or is she walking into a trap? Let us know your thoughts. And don't forget to like this video to help others discover this story. Chapter 4. The Enemy You Know. Morning came with rain still falling and Aaliyah still trapped. She'd slept poorly, every sound in the unfamiliar house making her startle awake. Now she stood at her window, watching staff members move through the gardens like ghosts in the mist. A knock on her door made her turn. Come in. Mrs. Han entered with a tray of breakfast. Good morning, Miss Carter. I trust you slept well. I was kidnapped yesterday, Aaliyah said flatly. So no, I didn't sleep well. Mrs. Han's expression didn't change. Mr. Kang has requested your presence in his study at 10 o'clock. And if I refuse? Then he'll come here instead. I suspect you'd prefer to maintain some control over the encounter. Aaliyah had to admit the logic. Fine. Where's the study? I'll escort you when it's time. After Mrs. Han left, Aaliyah picked at the breakfast. Traditional Korean fare that would have made her mouth water under different circumstances. Now it tasted like obligation. At precisely 10 o'clock, Mrs. Han returned. They walked through corridors that Aaliyah committed to memory. Every turn. Every exit. Every window. If she was going to escape, she needed to know this house's layout perfectly. The study was all dark wood and leather, books lining floor-to-ceiling shelves. Jiho stood at the window, his posture rigid despite the injury he must still be feeling. He changed into fresh clothes. Black slacks. White shirt. No jacket. She could see the bandaging beneath the thin fabric. Miss Carter, he said without turning. Thank you for coming. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. You just don't like the alternatives. He turned to face her, and Aaliyah was struck again by how handsome he was. Sharp features. Controlled strength. Eyes that saw too much. How's your wound? She asked. Holding. Thanks to you. Don't thank me. I only did it to keep my meal ticket alive. Something that might have been amusement crossed his face. Pragmatic. Realistic. He gestured to a chair. Sit. We need to discuss your situation. My situation is that I'm being held against my will. Your situation, Jiho corrected, moving to his desk, is more complicated than that. He pulled out a folder and set it in front of her. Aaliyah opened it and felt her blood run cold. Photos of her apartment. Her route to work. The cafe where she got coffee every morning. Even pictures of her sending money home to her family. You've been watching me, she said, her voice tight with anger. I've been protecting you, Jiho replied. The moment you saw my scar, you became a target. Not just to me, but to anyone who might want to use you against me. He pulled out his phone and showed her a series of messages. This morning, 3 of my rivals started asking questions. Who was the woman at the restaurant? Why did I take her with me? What does she know? Aaliyah's hands trembled as she read the messages. They were in Korean, but she'd learned enough to understand the threat beneath the polite words. They think I'm your mistress, she said. Better that than the truth. Which is what? Jiho leaned against the desk, his eyes never leaving hers. That you're the only person outside my inner circle who knows I was betrayed. The only witness to my moment of weakness. The only liability I can't eliminate. You could kill me, Aaliyah pointed out. I could, he agreed. But I won't. Why not? He was quiet for a long moment. Because you saved my life when you could have let me die. Because you looked at me with contempt instead of fear. Because you're the first honest thing I've encountered in years. The admission hung between them, raw and unexpected. I don't want to be here, Aaliyah said. I know. I don't want to be part of your world. Too late, Jiho said. You became part of it the moment you defended yourself last night. The moment you showed spine instead of submission. He moved closer, and Aaliyah forced herself not to step back. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You'll stay in this house. You'll be compensated generously for your time. You'll help me recover from my injury. And in exchange, I'll make sure no one touches you. No one threatens you. No one so much as looks at you wrong. I don't need your protection. Yes, Jiho said quietly, you do. Because right now, 3 criminal organizations think you're valuable to me, which makes you a target. And if you leave this house without my protection, you won't last a week. Aliyah wanted to argue, but the photos in the folder told her he was right. Someone had already been watching her, following her, documenting her life. This is insane, she whispered. This is survival, Jiho corrected. Welcome to my world, Miss Carter. I promise you'll hate it. Before Aliyah could respond, the study door opened. A woman entered. Mid-30s. Beautiful. Elegant. Wearing fury like expensive perfume. Jiho, she said, her voice cold. We need to talk. Mincio, Jiho replied, his tone carefully neutral. I wasn't expecting you. Clearly. Mincio's eyes cut to Aliyah with the precision of a surgical blade. And who is this? A guest. A guest you brought home from a restaurant? A guest everyone is talking about this morning. She moved closer to Aliyah, circling like a predator assessing prey. Let me guess, Mincio said. You're his new toy. How predictable. I'm not his anything, Aliyah replied. Then why are you in his house? That's not your concern, Jiho interrupted. Everything about you is my concern, Mincio shot back. We're engaged. Or have you forgotten? The word hung in the air like a grenade. Engaged. Aliyah looked at Jiho. He hadn't mentioned a fiancé. Hadn't mentioned being committed to anyone. Mincio and I have an arrangement, Jiho said carefully. Not a relationship. An arrangement that's about to make our families the most powerful alliance in Korea, Mincio corrected. An arrangement you're jeopardizing by bringing random women into your home. She turned back to Aliyah. I don't know who you are or what you think you're doing here. But you need to understand something. Jiho belongs to me. This house belongs to me. And if you're smart, you'll leave before I make you leave. Aliyah felt anger rising in her chest. She'd been slapped, kidnapped, threatened. And now some entitled woman was acting like she owned the oxygen in the room. I don't know who you think you are, Aliyah said quietly, but I'm not leaving just because you're used to getting what you want. Mincio's eyes narrowed. Excuse me. You heard me. The tension in the room shifted, became dangerous. Mincio stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only Aliyah could hear. I will destroy you, she said. I will make sure you never work in this city again. I will make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of woman accepts gifts from engaged men. Then I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of woman threatens people for existing in the same room as her fiancé, Aliyah replied. Mincio's hand moved. The slap was sharp and vicious. Aliyah's head snapped to the side, her cheek burning. Déjà vu crashed over her. 2 slaps in 2 days. Both from people who thought violence was their right. But this time, Aliyah didn't hesitate. She didn't think. She didn't pause. Her hand moved before her mind could stop it. The sound of her palm connecting with Mincio's cheek echoed through the study. Mincio stumbled back, shock and rage warring across her perfect features. You bitch. You bitch. That's enough. Jiho's voice cut through the room like ice. He stood between them now, his face carved from stone. Mincio, leave. She hit me. After you hit her first. She's nothing. She doesn't belong here. And you, Jiho said, his voice deadly quiet, don't give orders in my house. Mincio stared at him, breathing hard. You're defending her. Over me. I'm defending basic human decency, Jiho replied. Something you seem to have misplaced. For a long moment, Mincio stood frozen. Then she laughed. It was a bitter, ugly sound. You'll regret this, she said. Both of you. She turned and walked out, her heels clicking sharply against the marble. After she left, silence filled the study like smoke. Aliyah touched her cheek. Still burning. Still red. 2 marks in 2 days from 2 people who thought they owned the world. I should have warned you about her, Jiho said. You should have warned me about a lot of things, Aliyah replied. She's not usually violent. Neither am I. But apparently your world brings out the worst in people. Jiho studied her with those sharp eyes. You hit her back. I don't accept being hit. Not from anyone. Even if it costs you everything. Especially then, Aliyah said. Because if I let people hit me without consequences, what's the point of being alive? Something shifted in Jiho's expression. Something that looked almost like respect. You're dangerous, he said quietly. So are you. Seems we are well matched. Their eyes locked. The air between them thickened with something Aliyah couldn't name. Something that made her pulse race and her breath catch. This engagement, she said, breaking the moment. Is it real? It's political. Our families want an alliance. Mincio and I are the tools to achieve it. Do you love her? No. The answer came quick and certain. Does she love you? No. She loves power. I'm a means to an end. And me? Aliyah asked. What am I? Jiho moved closer. Close enough that she could see the bandaging beneath his shirt. Close enough that she could smell blood and expensive cologne and rain. You, he said softly, are the complication I didn't see coming. His hand reached up, fingers ghosting near where Mincio had struck her. You're the variable I can't control. The secret I can't keep. The problem I can't solve. His thumb brushed her cheek, gentle despite everything. And you're the only real thing in my life, he whispered. Aliyah should have stepped back. Should have reminded him she was here against her will. Should have pushed him away. Instead, she stood frozen, caught in the gravity of whatever this was between them. This is a mistake, she whispered. Probably. We'll both regret it. Most likely. Then why aren't you walking away? Jiho's eyes searched hers. Because I'm tired of doing what I should instead of what I want. His phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He stepped back, pulling it from his pocket. His expression hardened as he read the message. What is it? Aliyah asked. Mincio just sent photos to her father. Of you. Of us in this study. He showed her the screen. The photo was damning. Jiho's hand near her face. Their bodies close. The intimacy undeniable. Her father will demand answers, Jiho said. And what will you tell him? The truth. That you're here under my protection. That Mincio attacked you first. That I'm not a man who allows violence against women in my home. Even if it destroys your engagement. Jiho looked at her for a long moment. Especially then, he said. Chapter 5, War Declared. The next 3 days were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Mincio didn't leave the estate. Instead, she moved into the West Wing, claiming it was her right as Jiho's fiancée. She held court in the dining room, making sure every staff member knew exactly who was in charge. And she made Aliyah's life hell. Every time they crossed paths, Mincio found new ways to belittle her, called her the help in front of guests, made pointed comments about foreigners who didn't know their place, smiled sweetly while delivering verbal knives. But Aliyah didn't break. She'd survived worse than a spoiled Mafia princess. What bothered her more was Jiho. He kept his distance. Spent long hours in meetings. Avoided being alone with her. The heat that had sparked between them in the study seemed to have vanished, replaced by cold professionalism. On the 4th morning, Mrs. Han found Aliyah in the library. Mr. Kang's mother is arriving this afternoon, she said. You should prepare yourself. Prepare for what? Madam Kang doesn't tolerate disruption. And you, Miss Carter, are the definition of disruption. The warning proved accurate. Madam Kang arrived like a queen entering occupied territory. Mid-60s. Impeccably dressed. Eyes that could freeze blood. She found Aliyah in the garden and studied her with cold assessment. So you're the one causing problems for my son, she said without preamble. I'm the one your son kidnapped, Aliyah corrected. Semantics. You're here. You're disrupting his engagement. You're creating scandal. With respect, I didn't ask to be here. And yet here you are, defended by my son, protected in his house, wearing his guilt like perfume. Madam Kang moved closer. Let me be very clear, Miss Carter. I don't care about your story. I don't care about what you know or don't know. What I care about is my son's future. And you are not part of it. Then tell him to let me leave. Oh no, Madame Kang smiled. That would be too simple. Besides, you intrigue me. You hit Mincio. You saved my son's life. You refused to cower. She circled Alia like a predator. Women like you are either very brave or very stupid. Which are you? Brave enough to survive. Stupid enough to hope it matters. Madame Kang laughed. It was not a kind sound. I almost like you. Which makes what I'm about to do more difficult. She pulled out her phone and showed Alia a screen. This is your family back home. Your mother. Your younger sister. They live in a small apartment in Baltimore. Yes. Alia's blood ran cold. Don't, she whispered. Don't what? Don't protect my son's future? Don't ensure that you understand the stakes. Madame Kang's smile was razor-sharp. You have two options, Miss Carter. Leave Seoul quietly. Disappear back to America. Never speak of what you know. Or stay, and discover what happens to people who threaten the Kang family. Your son brought me here. And I'm giving you the chance to leave. Take it. Alia felt trapped. Cornered. Exactly how Madame Kang intended her to feel. I need to think, she managed. You have until tonight, Madame Kang replied. Choose wisely. That evening, Alia sat in her room, staring at the rain. She could leave. Disappear. Go home to her family and never look back. But the thought made her sick. Not because she'd grown attached to this prison, but because leaving meant Mincio won. Meant Jiho stayed engaged to a woman who saw him as a possession. Meant that violence and threats and power won again. She'd spent her whole life running from bullies. Maybe it was time to stand. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Jiho entered without waiting for permission. My mother spoke to you, he said. She threatened my family. I know. I've already neutralized it. Alia stood. What does that mean? It means your family has around-the-clock protection. It means any threat against them is a threat against me. It means my mother made a move without my permission, and I've corrected it. He moved closer, and Alia could see the exhaustion in his eyes. I'm sorry, he said quietly. This is my world. These are my consequences. You shouldn't be caught in them. Then let me go. I can't. Why not? Because, he stopped. Started again. Because you're not safe out there. Because my enemies think you matter to me. Because if you leave, they'll use you. Hurt you. Kill you to get to me. I'm already in danger here. Here I can protect you. Out there, I can't. Alia laughed bitterly. This isn't protection, Jiho. This is a gilded cage. I know. Then why won't you let me go? He was quiet for so long that Alia thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because I don't want to. The admission hung between them, raw and honest. That's not a good enough reason, Alia said. It's the only reason I have. Their eyes met. Held. I'm not yours to keep, she whispered. I know. I don't belong in your world. I know that too. Then let me go, Jiho. Please. He reached up, his hand cupping her face with surprising gentleness. I can't, he said again, because somewhere between the restaurant and right now, you became mine, and I don't let go of what's mine. Alia should have been afraid, should have pushed him away, should have reminded him that she wasn't property. Instead, she leaned into his touch, her eyes closing. This is wrong, she whispered. Yes. We'll destroy each other. Probably. I hate you for trapping me here. I know. But I'm not leaving. Jiho's thumb brushed her cheek. Why not? Alia opened her eyes, meeting his gaze directly. Because I'm tired of running. Because your mother threatened my family and you protected them. Because you're engaged to a monster and you deserve better. She took a breath. And because when you look at me, I don't feel invisible. I feel seen. Really seen. For the first time in my life. The confession cost her something. Pride. Maybe. Safety. Definitely. But it was true. Jiho's expression shifted. Softened. Became something almost vulnerable. You are seen, he said quietly. You are the only thing I see clearly anymore. He leaned closer, and Alia's breath caught. This is a mistake, she whispered. The best ones usually are. His lips brushed hers. Soft. Questioning. Giving her space to pull away. Alia didn't pull away. She kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened. Became urgent. Desperate. Two people caught in impossible circumstances, finding comfort in each other. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. We can't do this, Alia said. I know. You're engaged. To someone I don't love. Your family. Doesn't own me, Jiho interrupted. Not anymore. He pressed his forehead to hers. Stay, he whispered. Not because I'm forcing you. Not because you're trapped. But because you want to. Alia closed her eyes. Every rational part of her screamed to run. But her heart had different ideas. Okay, she breathed. I'll stay. For how long? I don't know. Until this makes sense. Or until we both come to our senses. Jiho smiled. It was rare and genuine, and it transformed his face. Then I'll make sure it never makes sense, he said. He kissed her again, slower this time. Deeper. And Alia let herself fall into it. Into him. Into the dangerous, impossible thing growing between them. Outside her door, Mincio stood in the hallway, her phone recording everything. Her smile was venomous. Perfect. This was exactly what she needed. Chapter 6. Exposed. The video went viral by morning. Not publicly. That would have been too crude. Instead, it circulated through Seoul's elite criminal networks like wildfire. Jiho Kang kissing a foreign woman. In his own home. While engaged to Mincio Park. The implications were catastrophic. Alia learned about it when Mrs. Han burst into her room at dawn. You need to see this, she said, her face pale. The video was everywhere. Private messaging groups. Encrypted channels. Even whispered about in legitimate business circles. Alia watched herself kiss Jiho, watched the intimacy between them, and felt her stomach drop. This is bad, Mrs. Han said. How bad? War bad. The Park family is calling for answers. Mr. Kang's associates are questioning his judgment. And Mincio is getting exactly what she wanted, Alia finished. She'd been set up. Manipulated into that kiss, into that moment, so Mincio could expose it. Where's Jiho? Alia demanded. In an emergency meeting with his council. They're deciding what to do. About me. Mrs. Han didn't answer. She didn't have to. Alia dressed quickly and headed for the council room. Two guards tried to stop her. Mr. Kang is in a closed meeting. I don't care, Alia interrupted. She pushed past them and threw open the doors. The room fell silent. 12 men sat around a massive table. Jiho at the head. All eyes turned to her. Miss Carter, one of them said coldly. This is a private meeting. About me, Alia replied. Which makes it my business. She walked to the table and looked directly at Jiho. Is it true? Are you deciding whether to sacrifice me to save your alliance? Jiho's jaw tightened. Alia. It's a simple question. Yes or no? The silence stretched. Then, yes. The word hit like a physical blow. They want you gone, Jiho continued. They say you're a liability. A scandal. A foreigner who doesn't understand our world. And what do you say? Jiho stood slowly. I say they're right. About everything except one thing. He moved around the table to stand in front of her. You're not going anywhere. Murmurs erupted around the room. Jiho, one of the older men warned. Be reasonable. The Park family can go to hell, Jiho interrupted. I'm done being reasonable. Done sacrificing what I want for what's expected. He turned to face his counsel. I'm breaking my engagement to Mincio Park. Effective immediately. Chaos. Voices shouting. Threats being made. Alliances fracturing in real time. But Jiho's voice cut through it all. For years, I've done what this family demanded. Married who you chose. Built alliances you needed. Killed who you ordered. I've been the perfect heir. His voice grew harder. But I will not marry a woman who hired someone to shoot me in Manila. Who paid my own cousin to betray me. Who's been planning my death since the day we got engaged. Dead silence. What? Madam Kang breathed. Jiho pulled out his phone and projected images onto the wall. Bank transfers. Encrypted messages. Flight records. All tying Mincio to the Manila ambush. She's been working with our rivals for months, Jiho said. Using our engagement as cover. Planning to kill me the moment we married and take control of our organization. He looked at Alia. And I choose her. Alia stared at his hand. At his face. At the man who just destroyed his own engagement, risked his empire, and chosen her in front of everyone. She took his hand. The room erupted again. But this time, Jiho didn't stay to listen. He led Alia out of the council room, through the corridors, past shocked staff members, until they reached his private study. He locked the door behind them. You just committed suicide, Alia said. I committed honesty, Jiho corrected. Your family will adjust. Or they won't. Either way, I'm done lying. He pulled her close. I meant what I said. I choose you. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you saved my life. I know you stood up to my mother. I know you kissed me back even when you knew it was wrong. His forehead pressed to hers. And I know that for the first time in my life, I want something just for me. Not for my family. Not for power. Just for me. What do you want? Alia whispered. You. Just you. The kiss was different this time. Not desperate or stolen. But chosen. Real. When they broke apart, Alia was crying. This is insane. Yes. We are going to destroy each other. Possibly. Your enemies will come for me. Let them try, Jiho said fiercely. I'll burn down anyone who touches you. Alia laughed through her tears. You're insane. You make me insane. Good, she whispered. She kissed him again, pouring everything into it. Fear and hope and the terrifying realization that she was falling for a man who lived in violence. A man who'd chosen her anyway. Outside the study, Madam Kang stood with Mrs. Han. He's really doing this, Mrs. Han whispered. Yes, Madam Kang replied. And you're going to let him? The older woman was quiet for a long moment. Then, my son has been dead inside for years. Doing his duty. Playing his role. Never choosing anything for himself. She looked at the closed door. And that woman brought him back to life. Made him fight for something other than power. So you approve? I didn't say that, Madam Kang said sharply. But I won't stand in his way either. She turned to leave, then paused. Besides, if Mincio tried to kill my son, she needs to answer for that. Her smile was cold. And I'm very good at making people answer. Chapter 7. The Reckoning. 3 days later, Mincio Park's body was found in the Han River. Official cause, suicide. Unofficial truth, justice. Alia didn't ask what happened. Didn't want to know the details. Some things were better left in shadows. What she did know was that Jiho's world was brutal. Unforgiving. Built on violence and loyalty and blood. And she was choosing to stay in it. Are you sure about this? Mrs. Han asked one morning as they had tea. No, Alia admitted. But I'm sure about him. Mr. Kang is complicated. So am I. He'll never be fully safe. Never be fully yours. I don't want him to be, Alia said. I want him to be real. And he is. Mrs. Han smiled sadly. Then I hope you're ready for what comes next. What came next was a formal introduction to Seoul's criminal elite. Jiho announced their relationship publicly. Brought Alia to meetings. Made it clear she was under his protection. The reaction was mixed. Some accepted her. Respected the way she'd earned Jiho's trust. Others saw her as weakness. An outsider. A vulnerability to exploit. But Alia had learned to navigate dangerous waters. She studied Korean language and customs, built alliances with the few women in Jiho's circle, proved she was more than just his lover. 6 months after the night at the restaurant, Alia stood in Jiho's study, looking at blueprints for a new business venture. A legitimate security company? She asked. Half legitimate, Jiho corrected. We'll provide protection for businesses, consulting, risk assessment. And the other half will remain comfortably in the shadows. He came to stand beside her. But I want to build something real. Something that doesn't rely entirely on fear and violence. Because of me. Because of us, he said. Because you showed me there's a different way to have power. Alia turned to face him. You know I still have nightmares about that first night. About you hitting me. I know. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But you also saved me. Protected me. Chose me when you didn't have to. She took his hand. We are both broken, Jiho. Both dangerous. Both carrying scars. Is that enough? He asked quietly. I don't know. But I'm willing to find out. They kissed, soft and slow. And for the first time since this all began, Alia felt something like peace. Epilogue. 1 year later. The security company flourished. Alia ran the legitimate operations, while Jiho handled the shadows. They made a formidable team. Madame Kang eventually accepted their relationship. Even gave Alia a jade bracelet that had belonged to Jiho's grandmother. Welcome to the family, she'd said. Try not to destroy my son completely. On the anniversary of the night they met, Jiho took Alia back to the restaurant. The same private room. The same table. But everything was different now. Do you ever regret it? Alia asked. Choosing me over everything else. Jiho reached across the table and took her hand. Every day, I wake up and choose you again. And every day, I'm grateful I slapped you. Alia laughed. That's a terrible thing to be grateful for. It brought you into my life. Showed me who you really were. Started everything. He pulled out a small box. Alia's breath caught. I'm not asking you to marry me, Jiho said. Not yet. But I'm asking you to build something with me. Something real and lasting. He opened the box to reveal a ring. Not an engagement ring. Something more meaningful. A partnership ring. 2 hands clasped together. One darker, one lighter. Be my partner, he said. In business. In life. In whatever comes next. Alia took the ring, tears streaming down her face. You're insane. You've mentioned that. We are from completely different worlds. We'll build a new one. Your family will always question me. Let them. I don't. She slipped the ring on. Okay. Okay. Yes, you ridiculous man. Yes to partnership. Yes to building something together. Yes to all of it. Jiho stood and pulled her into his arms. I love you, he said. I should have said it months ago. I know you do. I love you too. They kissed, ignoring the servers pretending not to watch. When they pulled apart, Alia laughed. You know this all started with a fork. A fork. That night, when I exposed your secret, I was holding a fork. Threatened you with silverware. Jiho smiled. Then I'm grateful for forks too. You're grateful for a lot of violent things. Only when they bring me you. As they left the restaurant, hand in hand, Alia thought about everything that had led to this moment. The slap that had revealed a secret. The fork that had exposed a truth. The kiss that had changed everything. She'd come to Seoul looking for a better life. Instead, she'd found a dangerous one. But it was hers. Real and honest and worth fighting for. And sometimes, that was enough.